My name is Tracy Meisner, and this is Mind Your Business.
Mind Your Business is a video podcast series to help startups, small businesses, and entrepreneurs navigate the world of business through the stories of other business owners. If you have questions, we have answers, and the reasons why starting your own business can be rewarding not only to your bank account, but to your soul as well. Tracy Meisner is a seasoned veteran of creating multiple startups and following his passion. This podcast series dives deep into the fundamentals of business ownership. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy the ride. It's time to mind your business.
Someone told me once it's all about what's the like nut of money that you have to make to stay alive. Can you make that doing what you're doing? If the answer is yes, then why do anything different?
Last week, we caught up with Nick Hayward of CV House Video. Nick Hayward is the co-founder of CV House LLC, a Georgia-based video marketing company specializing in diverse video marketing solutions for corporations, higher ed institutions, and nonprofits. He's 26 years old, he's a native of Atlanta, Georgia, and a 2020 graduate from the University of Georgia's Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communications. Outside of his business, Nick produces wedding films as well as sketch comedy and narrative short films. As part of his give back endeavors, he offers his video talents to help local nonprofit theaters market their productions and is currently a mentor in a local mentor program. Let's check out our conversation. So tell me the story behind CV House Video. What inspired you to start this company?
Can I say you to a degree? You know me just as well as anybody in terms of this industry. I loved telling stories. I needed a little kick in the rear, I think, when I was a teenager to kind of get things going. But I always had a passion for it. And when I got to UGA, my goal was either to go into the film industry proper, take the studio route, or to do something myself. And the opportunity came along. I met a guy named Tavon Knight. He and I worked well together in school. We were in the same program. And he asked me to be roommates with him 1 year. And then while we were roommates, the classic story, we started a company in our apartment. Took us a couple of years, really years, I say, because it's not an exaggeration, to not only figure out what kind of stories we wanted to tell, but to figure out like what the company's identity was and what we were going to do. We both have a passion for obviously the story, right? But more than that, the authentic story, the human element to the story. So our motto is Stories with Life. We came up with CV House. It's short. The CV is short for convivial, which is a word that means with life or lively. And so that's kind of how we came up with the original impetus for the company. And ever since then, we've been able to do work that is lively. It's authentic testimonial marketing. We let people just kind of tell their story. And then we package that, and then we put it out. So, yeah, he had started a couple businesses before me, and he had been like, "I respect you as a filmmaker. I think you have the chops," and I felt the same. We kind of just felt the synergy there, and a love for this craft, a love for telling authentic stories, and it just kind of came what it became.
Awesome. So launching CV House, what were your challenges? What were your obstacles?
When you don't know how to start a business, but you know that you have a product worth selling, that you can maybe make that product, you kind of forget that the business has so many other components to it to even officialize yourself. The first challenge was figuring out what to call ourselves. We spent a year tossing around hundreds of different ideas.
Nick's video company,
right,
Tavon's
right.
video, Nick
Exactly.
and Tavon.
The
Tavon and
original
Nick.
idea, I think, was Chaps Media, because we're two young chaps which we quickly ditched that idea. There were a bunch of other ones along the way, some names that were already taken, but that was the first challenge, was just swallowing our, the fact that we were going to have to come up with a name and some branding at some point, and that wasn't clearly our strong suit within the product, not the creative, like figuring out kind of those types of creative decisions. And then from there, I mean, obviously the biggest challenge when you start out something like this, I'm sure, as you know, is figuring out, once you figure out what you're going to do, what products you're going to be able to make, and learning that craft, which you have to learn through trial and error. Not necessarily, you could do all the training in the world, but you get onto a set, you get in front of a client. Our first few jobs were pretty rough. We had to really decide, hey, we made a lot of mistakes here. Do we correct it, or is this not for us? We had a lot of those moments. The biggest challenge is, right, just figuring out who you're going to serve, and then acquiring those clients, right? And it's more so, connecting with people. Is if you love what you're doing and you're good at it, there's a certain type of person that's going to recognize that and help you out, throw a project your way, believe in you as a young company. You kind of rely on that luck in a certain way. I say luck lightly. I know that, there is always that component to it, but, really kind of figuring out who you're going to serve and why, and then figuring out how to market that service to them. That's always been, it's still a challenge today. I mean, we've been lucky enough to rely on, for the most part, referrals. And that's, I from what I understand from colleagues I talked to, that's a lot of this industry. You can do a lot of on the ground marketing, but if you're not submitting for those bids, if you're not on someone's list, if you're not kind of at the right events, talking to the right people, that process is really challenging. So outside of the logistical things, getting licensed, getting insured, which when we work with government institutions, we have to be very insured. So that was a challenge for us at the beginning. Outside of all the business things that you have to kind of learn along the way, it's really just figuring out, who's going to buy this product, and can you serve them? Are you equipped to do so? Building that confidence, I think, is to it. That comes with time. You feel like you don't have any at beginning because you have no resume of work. So yeah, just a few things.
So how long have you guys been in business? Is it about 5 years?
I was going to say we unofficially started in 2020. And then we incorporated in 2021, November 2021. So a little over 4 years, I want to say.
Okay.
So yeah, we've been in business for, is that young? Is that a small, because I feel like once you pass that first year, you're not a baby business anymore, but I don't know. You tell me what your
my experience, 5 is the hump. Now that you're in business 4 years, 4+ years, how much of it is business versus how much is it of doing the work?
It's funny, I just got coffee with one of our clients this morning, and we talked about that very same idea. Very timely of you to ask that question. We've been collecting that data, or at least starting to think about kind of more ways to collect the data of truly like our logging our hours and things like that, and figuring out that proportion. If I had to take a rough guess, I would say that since we are just 2 guys and we run the whole operation, it feels like a 30-70 split. 30% is all the admin, all the logistics. I run the accounting, he runs the marketing, all of the kind of filings and everything. I handle that as well. So operationally and business side of things, that's probably about 30%, and then 70% is the actual work. And it's weird because our business is so seasonal, we found, because we work with a lot of school systems, a lot of school districts, kind of on a calendar with them. So we'll have to kind of do, sometimes we'll have to make that split much more even, a 50-50, kind of way more admin stuff just to get the work done, but get it done right and filed for and properly, accounted for. So yeah, it ebbs and flows, but I'd say on average we try to do more of the storytelling and the crafting, but we can't help ourselves. We need to get things done on the admin side, and so we definitely make time for that.
Um, how did you land your first clients? Think back to 4 years ago. Who were they?
We when we think about that, we get a big smile on our face because we were fortunate enough to have people around us that believed in us. I consider you're one of those people from when I was kind of figuring out that this is what I wanted to do. You believed in me, and when we got to college, the same thing happened. We found some folks who said, "Oh, you guys are going into business? Great! I know a guy or I know a thing. You should talk to them. You should quote them for a service." Our first gigs came from a friend of ours. He runs the equipment room at Grady at UGA. His name is Jim Black. I got to drop his name because he is the man. He helped us kind of secure our first big contract jobs. And I say big because, $600 was a big job back then. Um, you know, we, he would have people at the University of Georgia that would come to him to do a thing. He didn't have time to do it. So he often would throw that to students who he felt good about their skill set or he believed in. And we were fortunate enough, our first job uh, was through his recommendation. It was a dairy and science meat judging competition, like a steak judging competition with in a partnership with the University of Georgia and some ranch, some farm. I'm really forgetting the name. And we did that job for a few $100, and that job we actually messed up. So we had to go back and figure out how to tell the client, like, hey, we messed up the audio here. We need to redo X, Y, Z. First big major challenge for us was our first big job. And from there, one or two more recommendations down the line, that led to those clients, us doing a good job for maybe the University of Georgia Biology Department. A lot of UGA stuff. We're very grateful for, to be alumni
Okay.
of UGA. It really helped us out. Those programs would then, oh, we did a great job on a certain video, then they'd recommend us. And then it all kind of cascaded from there. First, it was government institutions, universities would see our stuff. We kept improving the product, obviously improving our relationship with certain clients. And from there, our connections allowed us to get involved with my business partner, Tavon. He had a job while we started the company. He had a job at the Clark County School District, there, the public school district in Athens, Georgia. And when he realized he needed to give more time to the business, he quit that job. And we were able to kind of fill the gap for them as a company instead of him being an employee. So we negotiated that contract out, and that they're still one of our best and favorite clients to the, I don't like to say favorite, they're all my favorite. But still one of our longest active clients to this day. We renew contracts with them every year. So yeah, it really just faith. Someone had faith in us and said, you know what? I don't think they're going to make me look bad for this recommendation. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's not. But for the most part, we were able to capitalize on those moments.
I want to go back
Yeah.
because you said something that was really important in business. Your first job, you screwed up the audio.
Yeah.
What was that like, and how did you approach the client to make it better? And was the client's response better than what you thought or worse than what you thought?
Yeah. It's we look at that moment in our company's history as being that was the turning point. Are we going to do this or are we not? Because when we got home that day and we realized once we were cutting selects on the B-roll, we realized there's no audio. We freaked out naturally. First job for money. Okay. We messed it up. We're done. And so we took a drive Tavon and I, we took a drive and we just breathed and we talked and we were like, is this something we want to do? Is this something we feel like we can do? And the answers to that, they just kept being yes, 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 something we want to do. Yes, I can do it. Yes, we made a mistake, but that's okay. Can we correct it? I think so. So that night, figuring out the game plan, because there was a shoot the next day, to talk to the client, figuring out our approach. I don't know if we knew exactly how to iron out that conversation in a way that was soft but true to the situation, and also, kept a sense of, here's what we can offer in return for this. Here's how we can make it right. And so we eventually massaged our pitch. Hey, we're just going to be honest about what happened. Don't dwell on it. Go get to solution-oriented thinking. How can we make this right? And unfortunately, some of the product was not able to be completed that next day, despite us, doing whatever we can to make it right, just because there were personnel who were in the video that were speaking that couldn't be back there the next day. So coming up with a game plan with the client, who, sweet woman named Desi, I believe. Yes, it was. Sweet woman. She definitely took it better than we thought. I don't know if she had been through something like that before, but I think she definitely gave us a lot of grace. Hey guys, we apologized a lot. And I think that's something that we don't do anymore. We thank people for their patience. We thank people for believing in us and doing business with us. We try not to apologize as much anymore, because I remember something that she had said was, boys, I like working with you. Stop saying you're sorry and let's figure out what we can do. So that was a big moment for us. Hey, this isn't the end of the world, right? This person is a human being. They understand, that we're going to make mistakes, and they understand too that they're pleased with the idea that we're going to make it right in whatever way we can. So we changed the shoot up, did some different things, and ended up delivering on most of the fronts of the project to a place where they were pretty happy with what they received, even if it wasn't exactly what we had kind of originally intended. So yeah, just
So what's the big takeaway for somebody that does this and video wasn't recorded, audio wasn't recorded? What would you advise that next person?
I think the business response, right, is to make the customer happy. And what that means is do whatever you can to right the wrong as much as you're able to, and do that, in good faith. But I think the thing I would tell somebody, and I'm sure it affected the way we approach the situation. We do handle situations like that. Thankfully, they don't happen as much anymore. But we handle situations that are stressful like that, where projects might not be coming out the way we want, with a sense that it's not the end of the world, and you will recover from this. And your recovery in this moment, like the way you respond, is going to define the working relationship you have with that person. And it's going to define how you can stand by your product, I think, at the end of it, right? Like, we were happy with what we were able to do, despite it being kind of put together in this fashion under this kind of duress. So yeah, reminding yourself that it's not the end of the world, and being solution oriented was my...
Being solution oriented is the key.
Right.
What I've learned in business is there are two decisions in business: what you want to do and what you should do. And if you do what you should do, chances are your business is going to get over the next hurdle, the next hump. And there will be plenty of them. You just don't know what they are at the time.
Right.
So video is very competitive. there's if you Googled video production in Athens, and I haven't done it in Athens, but I used to help a lot of video production companies years ago, and I go, how many competitors? And they're like, I don't know, 50, 60. And I was like, okay, there's 50 or 60. There's still plenty of work for everybody.
Right.
How do you stay ahead and continue to innovate? What are you doing to stay
Yeah,
ahead?
absolutely. No, there's th- sometimes I feel like the only way to know that is to keep collecting the client data that we get back. People say good things about the work experience, and I think it's almost less, yeah, like we have to some degree maintain our roots of the core of the business idea, which is to make authentic marketing material. If you stay with the core of the business, I think people have recognized we've always tried to get to a place where people are hiring us because of the style we produce, not necessarily because we're competent enough to do the job. Um, and so maintaining that style, I think, has helped us carve a little bit of a lane. Um, but the big thing, it feels to me, is just nurturing the business relationships. And I'm sure this is a very normal thing across many different job markets, especially in the kind of a sales oriented, a business kind of minded thing, is always making sure and checking in and doing what you can do for the people who come back to you for work or who are giving you the work in the first place, making that experience feel very personal. I mean, one of the things of having only two guys at the helm is, yes, we have to do everything, but we're the guys who liaison with everybody. So it feels like such a personal experience. I know as you scale up, you can maintain that in other ways. So we're curious to see what that looks like for us in the future. But yeah, it's maintaining that identity of what we do and then continuing to improve the product. I mean, we need to research what is current, what is the current look, current kind of understanding of the editing landscape, what kinds of content are people made aware of now, and they can see, online, and they're like, oh, that looks good, I want that. Staying refreshed. It's almost like that our education never stops. I'm sure as a teacher, former teacher, you and current teacher of it, the Film Academy, I'm sure you understand that better than anybody. You're a student of the field always.
Absolutely. I've learned more about video in the last 2.5 years than in the previous 10.
Yeah, the landscape is totally, it's morphing and changing every year. There's so much that's innovating and so much new.
But let me also add, one of the things that I really appreciated that you answered kind of the way I wanted you to answer is that in business, people will never remember how much they spent.
Right.
They will remember the experience.
Absolutely.
If you focus in on the experience, there's a lot that you can overcome. Because I could probably name 10 or 15 video companies that can film circles around me, can edit circles around me, but the experience of doing business with me is going to be better than any other video production company out there. And
right.
That's something I work on every day.
Yeah.
Walk us through your creative process.
When someone asks for a video product, obviously, as you know, as you just spelled out, more information is needed, because we can make you a video, but we don't necessarily know exactly what is in your head for this product, and you might not know either. And so I think the first step we call it the kickoff, is always to talk to them a little bit more, about what the final product might be. What's your goal? Is always one of the first questions. Because if we know the goal, then we can curate the story with that goal always in mind. The goal is paramount. Audience is also part of that, right? Knowing who the video is going to be shown to. For us, almost duration is almost like a third or fourth component, just because our charging model is different. I feel like a lot of videographers base their prices, and it makes perfect sense, on final deliverable length. We kind of focus more on what resources are going to be needed to tell the story, and then we'll advise, unless you have a duration in mind or it's for an event, we advise kind of, here's what we're thinking based on our experience in the industry and kind of what the sentiment is around videos. And you're right, a 5-minute video is it is tough to hold people. Even the 2-minute video is tough to hold people's attention sometimes. So that's something that we're always kind of constantly aware of, when pitching things. And our clients actually, I feel like, are more savvy now to that. They know, they get the social media invasion, they get the takeover, and how people's attention spans are, and how they need to create a product to stand out. But the creative side of it is really, once we know that information, who's this for, how's it going to be shown, where's it going to be shown, what are the overarching things you want to talk about or showcase, whether it's an event or a marketing strategy or whatever. Then we can kind of develop, we always put together like a synopsis, which is kind of like a little pitch of our version in our head based on what you told us. Here's what we're interpreting this video project to look like, from a really rough concept perspective. And here's how we're going to execute it. Here's how much it costs. So we kind of give that little package, just a 1-pager, to every client. And then that's kind of how we go from there. So yeah, the creative process after that, it really, once we get the job, it's a collaboration between them and us. Their original ideas, we interpret it. We bring them our interpretation more fleshed out. We ask any more questions that we need, and then they tell us, if, hey, this, I see it in my head. I give you the green light. Let's do it this way. Some videos don't need that. Some clients know what they want. Meeting them where they're at, I think, is also really huge. Because some people are like, I want it this way. I think you can do it for me, but it's got to get done here, this, that, and the other. Some people are like, I don't know what I'm doing. This project landed on my desk, and you guys seem like you could maybe put it together for me. So help me out. And those are the projects, I think, especially when people need help and guidance, where we get to be our most creative, and have kind of those put our storytelling chops to work in unique ways. Often the most successful, but also the most challenging projects are those kind of projects. But yeah, just listening to them, meeting them where they're at, and putting the story first.
How important is it in the video field? They give you the green light. How important is it to lay that all down into writing and get them to sign and agree?
That's probably still a current challenge, of interpreting the importance of that, because some of our clients trust us full faith, and they let us do whatever because we've done enough work with them, or they've seen enough to know that CV House is going to be able to make that product work for me. The tricky part, right, and I'm sure you're kind of alluding to this, is on the back end, you deliver a product that someone's not too happy with. How do you handle that situation if it wasn't agreed upon that way? And we run into that sometimes, where we then kind of have to go back to that first job where we mess it. How do we make it right? How do we meet what they're wanting us to do, the revisions we're making, and make them feel whole, make the experience smooth? It is important for all communications related to agreeing to the money for the project and agreeing to the concept, the broad concept of the project. It's important to get all that in writing. It's something to fall back on, but never to then, if something isn't working, blame like say, hey, you agreed to this the way it is. That's never really what it's for. It's for just protection of the initial concept and making sure you're always kind of feeding into that idea and not drifting too far away from the central thesis of the project. So it's important for a variety of reasons, but you don't always get it. And it can be hairy, but more often than not, if you're going to meet them where they're at, if you're going to make it right, if it's not, it's a little less important to have it very rigid and defined. Part of every idea that's approved needs to be cataloged, written down somewhere in a mutual communication. I mean, email, text, whatever.
Yeah. Give us some advice. What advice would you give that young guy right out of college? I've got a degree in new media studies. I've got a degree in video production.
Giving advice, it feels so. I'm
You've
still
done it,
learning.
though.
You just
the
gave
thing
me
is,
some of ensure it's always, as best you're able, put it in writing. It's something that we do, but it's not our primary like business mantra. So, I mean, that carries a lot of weight. I think we're going to kind of think about that as well. So me giving advice, I understand. I have plenty of experience now at this point to to give at least some, I spoke to, I'll put it like this. I spoke to a former student of yours, actually, not too long ago. His name is
who
Jan.
is that? Jance Tackett. Yep.
Yep. I spoke to Jance, and we spoke for like 2 hours, and he asked me advice, all sorts of things. Turning the passion into the job, that can be a really hard duality to kind of live with, because it's no longer your independent of money passion. It's no longer this thing that is for pure creation. It is your financial instrument. It is your skill set, your tool that you're monetizing. Recognizing that early on and accepting it, that the passion you have to do this thing overrides the rigidity of it gonna be a money-making vessel for you. You feel like you can do both. And you can do both simultaneously, but not 100% of the time. Sometimes it's a job. Sometimes it is a pure creative outlet. That's why we have found ourselves working with nonprofits year over year. Those are the projects where the money is not, an object for, they don't have a lot of money, nonprofits, to work with you. So that's where we exercise our passion the most freely. And typically those are our best projects. So in some ways, yeah, you'll have opportunities, but recognizing early on that it's a different animal when you turn that passion into a job. I'm sure people who are painters, who do commissions, feel that same way. Any artistic field, any creative field, it can be that way. Is swallowing that early and saying, you know what I do. I love storytelling. I'm just going to accept that it's going to be a little different, and staying, blessed and happy that you get to at least do it for a job. If you are able to find success, always never taking it for granted. I tell people every day that I get to do this, I feel like the luckiest man ever. And it's not just, I'm not lying. I'm not just saying that to butter someone up or make myself feel appreciative. I really do feel that way. And never losing sight of that, I think, has helped me stay motivated when it does feel the most like a job. When I'm editing interviews for 12 hours in a day, or filming a recording of an event that's just something that's not my field, I'm not interested in it, whatever, reminding myself that it's a blessing to be able to make a full-time living doing it, such a creative thing. I could say and try and compare to what I could be doing, or a 9-to-5 type of job. No shade there. I mean, those are great in their own right. You don't have as much stability when you do this for a living like this. But that's part of kind of what keeps you driven and keeps you motivated and keeps you hungry. So yeah, remaining grateful and recognizing that there's a division there that will happen from time to time, not letting that deter you from what it's easier said than done. Complacency can set in, monotony can set in. Those can all be deterrents to the creative process that we found.
Absolutely, they
We've
can.
had to kind of get ourselves out of funks a lot of times. When things go well, complacency is a big thing to think about. If you find yourself with a couple clients and you feel like hey, I had a great month, that's when I feel like you got to work your hardest. Now you have something to show for what you're doing. Now you have relationship building momentum with people, use that, leverage that, market yourself even harder. Instead of just taking a break, which you absolutely should do. Their burnout is
Yes.
real.
Burnout is real. Yes.
But finding the work-life balance, I actually think is harder than I originally thought it was going to be, because with the passion, with the desire and the drive to do this for a living in a creative field, it can feel like your entire life. It can feel overwhelming to, who you are as an individual, because this is what you wanted to do. Now you get to do it for a living. Your job becomes your passion, becomes your life. I've had to find throughout the years ways to give back to myself and not forget, that, I've had health issues over the past year. So I've helped that. I've fixed a lot of that. I've been able to take advantage of setting my own schedule to, get my health in order and do things for me and feed back into me. Lately, I've been doing a lot of the skits and things like that to really separate my, some
Notice the
passion
skits coming.
from the work. That's been really a really great creative exercise. And just kind of, again, leaning to that separation of yourself and the job, because it's something that you love, and it can be kind of difficult to make that separation. So yeah, that's, if I had to give you advice, just don't lose sight of those things. And of course, above all, be a human being to the people who are giving you opportunities. Be a person, be someone who, reaches out, checks in, gets coffee, hangs out with, these people that you're working with. A lot of times you're doing a project that's one of many. You're not the sole focus of their entire career. Make their life as easy as possible while you are able to do that. And then I think people have appreciated that about kind of one of our companies, kind of the way we do business, just us two young guys who want to come in and make your life easy. That's one of our kind of tenets of doing business. And people will kind of give back to that idea. So is that enough advice, do you think?
It is. I like the fact that in my business, I could do this, or I could have lunch with somebody, or I could do a video, or talk about a video, or edit a video, which I love to do. I love to shoot a video. I love to write a video. Every day is different for me.
It is dynamic. It changes day to day. That is exciting to kind of highlight on, because you're right. That's a very poignant statement. A real job. I always use that term. It's hard to use it because, I have plenty of friends who are in corporate positions, and some of them love it, some of them hate it. It is what it is. But you're right. The diversity of experience doing this for yourself, there's that almost is the reason enough for anyone to want to do it, let alone all the other upsides. You take the downside because of, there's no pressure on your shoulders outside of what you put on yourself and what you want to achieve. And that's pretty beautiful. You'll make it happen. If you're driven enough, you can make that happen without the constriction of that. Think of all that time, all that time you have, when you're not bound by some work week. It's all, as someone told me once, it's all about, what's the like nut of money that you have to make to stay alive. Can you make that doing what you're doing? If the answer is yes, then why do anything different?
Ap-
And
that's a nugget. I'm going to keep that.
you're right.
Winding down,
Yeah.
where do you see CV House 5 years from now?
It's something we talk about a lot. The original long-term goal of the company was, and still is, to become a production house that is facilitating larger productions, specifically passion projects for documentary filmmakers. So to be kind of an asset in the documentary and testimonial marketing space, mainly have a place where things can be filmed and shot. Right now, it's home office, and we love it, and we rent spaces all the time. But the goal, I think, is to be kind of a bit of a bigger presence and also an ally to documentary filmmaking, and something, obviously the core of our business is telling authentic stories. So being able to do that on a larger scale is always kind of the goal. We kind of have individual goals that both align with the company. Mine personally is doing more nonprofit endeavors for the company, and Tavon's is to expand operations to more of the corporate side of things. And we're trying to figure out how we can work that in tandem of each other. So we're working on kind of a nonprofits and community outreach division right now. And so that's kind of because we're already kind of starting to dip our toes into the clients in the corporate space that are going to help fund a lot of that growth for us, which is super exciting. So the two kind of work in tandem. You need money to do things, and that's just kind of the way things go. And for a long time, we've buckled down and done things that we needed to do to keep the company growing, and we've achieved financial growth every year. So very blessed for that. And now we can kind of set our sights on those long-term goals that we've always had. So I would say in the next 5 years, it's just making sure those pathways are starting to really form and merge together into something that I think ultimately has always been the goal, which is to just keep telling authentic stories and helping people to do that as well.
That's very, very admirable. I have a bunch of video coaches that I've done work for, and they're like, "Don't you want to grow your company?" I'm like, "No, I pay my bills. I go on vacation. We go out to eat. Um, I've started another company which is rentals. So I'm buying houses. I bought the house across the street from us, and that is being rented. The property that we own. I'm meeting with a builder. We're going to build a house and an ADU, a smaller little rental. So two pieces of rental property on our property. So, I'm close to that retirement age.
Right.
The last video that we shot was in Hawaii, and sounds great. But do you know how long it takes to fly from Hawaii to North Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
It's a long, 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 long day.
Right.
And when you're schlepping gear, that it can wear you out.
Sure.
So I know I don't have that many years ahead of me in terms of running. But the people have asked me, "Do you want to ever hire somebody?" And the answer is no. Like, I've had businesses, and delegation of responsibility is the hardest thing to do in business,
Yeah.
because you'll go, "Screw it, I'll just do it."
Right.
So Um, that's my reasoning. Anyway, what trends in video production do you think creatives should pay attention to? And I think I'm probably going to know the answer to this.
The days of the even really the short form, I think long form, I'm not going to be as bold, but the days of short form horizontal video are slowly creeping away, and everything is going to the iPhone display vertical orientation 9:16. We have more clients ask us about that type of work than ever before. And we started out during COVID, so people needed live streams, people needed recordings, people weren't worried about that. It's the biggest one. But secondarily to that, I think people are really focusing right now on how can I just do work? And a lot of people are finding that they can create a social media presence and do work for a business for free. And if they have the skills, then they can create kind of a unique product that can then go viral or blow up and be kind of a mark of this is like the videographer who can do this type of work. They're offering it for free. That the virality is the end goal, not a paycheck. That's been an interesting kind of, because that's in some ways that's competition, right? If you do video for a business, you charge them many thousands of dollars. How do you compete with somebody who is kind of licking their chops and doing some slick things? That's been an interesting thing. I don't know if those trends are long lasting. I think at the end of the day, there's always a market for what we do, the high value, high production value video products. But definitely the biggest trend is just things keep getting shorter, things keep getting a little bit different oriented, and making sure you're always offering that, I think, is something that people are appreciating. Offering the hey, we'll cut you a vertical video package as well, or we'll cut you.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll cut you the horizontal version. Sometimes the vertical is expected, and that's been interesting to kind of navigate. It can't tools like the phone and this was kind of when we were coming out of your program back at AHS. Those tools were starting to really get some buzz of, hey, you don't need a $5,000 plus camera system to really, get your feet wet in this industry. So that's another thing, people aren't making content necessarily with production value in mind as much. It's more
Right.
so, because the production value is good with very minimal effort now. Everyone needs, if you're in the space, like if you're doing videos at the level we're doing, yeah, you need to know what you're doing. You need to know how to set a camera. But we've been asked and been paid handsomely for social media content shot on an iPhone. So being adapting and flexible to that is certainly important.
I have a Sony A7.
Yep. Good camera.
And great camera. I shoot now 60%.
Yeah. Not surprised.
60% of my videos is this. It's an iPhone 13, nothing special, no special lens. Yes, I do have great audio.
Right.
Because you can't have good video without great audio.
Right, exactly.
But yeah. So the tool that I thought you were going to mention that you didn't mention was AI.
Yeah, it's certainly, I think, and we use it on the back end for editing. AI video is such an enigma for us right now because, we follow plenty and are up to date with a lot of creative and narrative AI content that's generated on social media for shock appeal or, the interest of just the AI look, what it can create. It's a lot of it. You don't need giant animation budgets to make an AI animation that looks really cool if you know what you're doing with those tools, which are very complex tools. That trend, though, is it's weird. It hasn't creeped over into this lane, at least the lane we're in yet. With go on.
I think of AI as a shovel. It's a shovel. It's a tool. I use it to clean audio. I do a lot of stand-ups in hotel lobbies. And yes, I've got a Rode wireless on them, but it's going to pick up some ambient stuff. I can throw it into AI and it sounds like a recording studio. And then I have to go in and add some stuff because it sounds so good that it sounds almost unnatural because it's so clean. So I have to dirty it up. But it's my dirty stuff.
Right.
So, yes. And I also use it for eyes. So I do a lot of editing this type of work. So I have doctors that will give me videos that they shot talking about medical stuff, but they're shooting it in their basement. And so there's all kinds of garbage behind them, and I'll just pop that in and green screen them without a green screen, and then pop in a backdrop that I created in Adobe Express. I need a hospital lobby with a 15% blur, and bloop, pop it in, and that's how I make most of my money. That's my clientele. And I also have to clean up their audio.
I love that analogy of a shovel, AI as a shovel, because it doesn't feel like the only thing to use. It's it is very much an assistant tool, just like what already exists, in other forms in programs. Yeah.
Last and final. If you could give somebody one piece of advice for starting out in business, what advice would you give?
I think try and reflect on the biggest thing I've learned. It all has to do with the client experience. But I'm trying to figure out a nice way to button it up. Maybe it's this, and I think it kind of is a reflection of our company identity as authentic storytelling. Treat your clients like real people, and in some ways an extension of your family, of your business culture. You're not working with a paycheck, you're working with a person. And I think a lot of times you're doing work and it doesn't even, the money, as long as it's agreed to and squared away, now your focus is not to get paid so much as it is to give them an experience worth having. I think that's where I'd say just treat your clients like human beings, like real people, and like an extension of your company and your family.
Thank you so much for this.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was a great talk.
And thank you for joining us. Mind Your Business is produced and directed by Tracy Meisner at Meisner Media Studios in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. If you'd like to be featured on our show, please email us at tracy@meisnermedia.com. Until next time, please mind your business.